Today is October 30th, 2024. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life. This is Pro-Life Week. Well, in 6 days, the American public will finally be voting for a new president. And thankfully, it's going to come to an end, this 2-year drama. And I'm sure both candidates and their staffs are putting together their final thoughts, their last messages they wanted to give to the American public to seal the deal. And, regarding the issues, I'm sure that Harris is going to talk about how Trump is a bad man who's almost a fascist or a Nazi, and that she's going to push reproductive freedom, abortion rights, through all of pregnancy, women should control their own bodies, blah, blah, blah. Trump, he's going to talk about immigration, and maybe he'll talk about the pullout of Afghanistan. He's been talking lately about the trans issue in women's sports, the food prices, the economy in general. He's been trying to focus on policy issues, and she seems to be playing up more on emotional tug issues like abortion and he's a Nazi. So we'll see how it all plays out. But this has been a very historic year. I'm a student of history. I love history and even political history. Might drive my wife crazy, but it's true that I do follow politics quite a bit. And when you consider the fact that back in May we had a debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and Biden did horribly. He just looked so weak and pathetic. And I think all of his support seemed to evaporate. And there was the discussion, what do we do with Joe Biden? What do we do? Because he will lose. The conventional wisdom among Democrats was he will lose, and there's a good chance that he's going to take down the party with him, especially on down ballot races in the Senate and the House. And they couldn't deal with that, so they somehow found a way to pressure him off the ticket. I don't think he wanted to go gently into that good night. I think he was forced off the ticket. So you have him being removed from the ticket, and then you had Donald Trump about a month later in mid-July, I guess that's 2 months later, be less than an inch away from being assassinated at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And you don't see presidential candidates being kicked off tickets. That doesn't happen in American politics. You don't see candidates being shot at campaign rallies during the heat of the campaign. You don't see these things. You just don't see it. And then you had Kamala Harris, the vice president, who somehow becomes the nominee without having received a single vote from the American public. Not a single vote, but she somehow becomes the heir apparent. She gets the baton that's handed to her by a crippling Joe Biden, and she becomes the nominee with very little support. Well, I shouldn't say that. She got tons of support from the party faithful, but is she getting the support from the American public? They had no say. She was anointed the nominee at the convention, and no one voted for her. Unprecedented. That is unprecedented in American politics, but it happened. And the Democratic voters have to accept it, take it or leave it. They're not going to vote for Trump, so it's Kamala Harris at the helm. And then there was even a second assassination attempt against Trump. That person didn't even get a shot off, but still there was the intent to assassinate the Republican candidate. So these are unprecedented times. They really are. You can't get around that fact. And then And then, it's a really close election. I mean, it's going to come down to a handful of votes in all these 7 swing states. It just is. So what happens? About a week ago, Donald Trump has an amazing rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City, and in the pregame show, so to speak, they've got this supposed comedian who tells this off-color, disrespectful joke about Puerto Rico being a garbage dump. Totally uncalled for. Trump is trying to win Hispanic voters. This is not a way to win friends and influence voters. Makes you think this guy is probably a Democratic mole who pretends to be a Trump supporter. I mean, what was he thinking to insult Puerto Rican voters? Unbelievable. Especially in, Florida is an important state, and there's a lot of Puerto Ricans who live in the Orlando area of Florida. You don't want to anger your voters. And then a few days later, Joe Biden is making a statement, and he basically says that the Trump voters are garbage. They're all garbage. Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton called the Trump voters a basket full of deplorables, which was bad enough. And now Biden is calling the Trump voters garbage. So if there is a time to turn down the volume on disrespectful rhetoric, now is the time. Let's talk about issues. Let's talk about campaigns. Let's talk about where we want to lead our country. These are what the candidates are supposed to be talking about, not name calling or insulting ethnic groups. So I mean, and I hope that Trump makes a stronger statement condemning what that comedian said. I mean, according to what I've read, Trump didn't even know who this guy was. He'd never even heard of him before. Well, why was he on the platform? Why was he at the dais at Madison Square Garden? Why was he even there if Trump doesn't know who he is? Why wasn't this guy vetted? I mean, I don't understand that. I just don't get it. So to me, obviously, this is a pro-life podcast. I'm talking about abortion a lot. It's a key issue. It's the name of the program, Pro-Life Week. So we've come down to the final pro-life message, and we know Trump is kind of flip-flopped, or he's kind of weak-kneed on abortion, but we know where Kamala Harris is. She is obsessed. She is a dyed-in-the-wool progressive ideologue when it comes to abortion. There is not one single restriction she supports, not one. So I guess I'm speaking to pro-life voters maybe. Do we want as a nation to see unfettered abortion rights? Maybe not in Michigan because we already lost Prop 3, but in that sense, Michigan already has unfettered abortion rights for the most part, except for a few little categories like parental consent and a 24-hour waiting period, but and a ban on taxpayer-funded abortions. But in every other area, Michigan is a pro-abortion state. But nationally, do we want unfettered abortion rights? Do we want, as a nation, to see parental rights removed from the issue, from the equation, from the decision-making power that parents should have over their minor children? Do we as a nation want to see partial birth abortion restored in a lot of these state referendums, these constitutional referendums that are going to be going around? Do we want to see as a nation where there are no inspections at abortion clinics, or there are no safety standards at abortion clinics? Do we want to see that? I don't think we do. Do we as a nation want to see taxpayers foot in the bill for abortions for poor women, for women on welfare? Should the taxpayers be funding this? should we as a nation get rid of waiting periods? You know, like even that woman in Detroit from last year who voted against that one issue on the Reproductive Health Act in Michigan. She said, if a woman is going to terminate a pregnancy, it's not too much to ask that she have a day or 24 hours to think about that life-changing decision for her. Do we want to get rid of 24-hour waiting periods? Or do we want to see a nation that approves constitutional amendment changes that permits non-physicians from performing abortions? I've mentioned this before, back in the mid to late 1960s, when abortion reform was just beginning to start across the country. The argument was by the pro-abortion people, too many women are dying of illegal abortions by quacks, by non-licensed or uncertified or untrained doctors. We want to put the abortion procedure into the hands of licensed medical doctors to protect women's health. That was the message back in 1968. We want licensed doctors, not non-physicians. Well, now the message is you don't have to have licensed doctors to perform abortions. How is that safe for America's women? How is that safe to have a non-physician perform a medical procedure like an abortion that has serious complications or could have serious medical complications for the woman? So for all these reasons, voters need to vote pro-life. We can stop the madness. And I even looked at some polls in Florida. There's this Amendment 4. You need a 60% vote approval for it to pass. That's how it's worded in the Florida Constitution. You need 60% approval. And the most recent poll just came out just a few days ago. It said 58% supports Amendment 4. That's the pro-abortion referendums. 58%. You only need 60, so it's really, really tight. And the poll said 11% is undecided. So I'm praying that 58% is inaccurate, and that it's a lot lower, because I just have a hard time believing that the residents of Florida would make such a foolish, disastrous decision to add to their state constitution to enshrine abortion rights. Where are these Hispanic voters? Where are the evangelicals and the Catholics? Where are these Christian voters who are sitting on the sidelines? They need to vote. Republicans need to vote pro-life on Amendment 4 in Florida. And I just don't want to wake up a week from today, Wednesday morning, and find out that the voters of Florida have approved Amendment 4 and taken away the state's 6-week heartbeat bill. Lives are at stake. Unborn babies' lives are at stake, and they need protection. We lost it in Michigan, but we can hold a line in Florida. So I'm gonna finish with this. I'm not making any predictions about next week, about Tuesday, although I will predict the Republicans will take the Senate. At least 51 senators will control the chamber. But for the U.S. presidency, I don't know how it's going to turn out. I hope and pray that Kamala Harris is defeated. With that, I'll let you go, and I'll see you next time.